Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte. Thanks for having me here at Devstaff Meetup. Great seeing all of you today, even though it's online, since I couldn't be there in Crete with you now. I can't believe I'm missing Signopempty, but yeah, bad planning for me. But I hope you will have a great evening, hopefully with some good food and good conversations following these presentations today. I know Iraklis after this will do a very interesting and informative presentation on how to prepare for job hunting with guidance on how to do live coding in the best way, etc. But I will start with was kind of the same topic, but more from the perspective of how companies actually think when they hire. So I'm here to show you like what actually happens on the other side of the table, how hiring works inside a company, what we discuss when there's no candidates in the room, how CVs are filtered and how interview feedback is discussed internally, and also why sometimes really good candidates actually don't get the offers. And my goal today is not to teach you how to impress anyone or to be like anyone else but yourself, but more to have the confidence in yourself that you are good enough and like how to be clear on that. So it will be easier for companies to see you and to say yes to you. And also how to think when you pick and choose the employers that you are truly interested in, that is right for you, and to find a place where you can like really thrive. Okay, short about me. I think that I have met a bunch of you in the room today, and I know that I have some of my colleagues and friends there as well. But for you who I haven't met, I work with people and culture with Fairlow, and this is my 5th year with Fairlow now. So ever since I started working my career, which is about 20 years ago now, which is pretty scary, long time, but recruitment, it has always been like part of the roles that I had. And my passion is really, what makes people in organizations thrive and what is required to have a great company culture. And a lot of that actually starts in the recruitment process, which I will talk more about today. And of course, if you have any questions or comments or something, just go ahead. So let's start with how CVs are actually read. Over the years, I have scanned many thousands of CVs, and I don't know how many hundreds of recruitment processes I've been part of. And one thing I want to say about this, and it's important to know this when you're job hunting, and that is that hiring, it's not a clean, perfect process. Of course, we always strive for it to be, but in fact, it's never perfect. It's human, and it's done by people who have good intentions, but who are also under time pressure, delivery pressure, people who are trying to reduce risk for their team and their company, all at the same time trying to move things forward in the process. And almost always, there are many people involved from the company side in the process, and things, it can happen things internally, someone gets sick or super busy, tight deadline, and then the process takes longer than we initially thought. And when you as a candidate are on the other side of that, I know it can be frustrating. That understanding that context matters, because it explains a lot of like the frustration people feel when they're job hunting. Also good to know is that candidates, they are always like evaluated against each other. So it's never like against some ideal version of the perfect developer, because perfect, it doesn't exist. Perfect is boring, and no one is perfect, and we shouldn't strive to be perfect. And one lesson that I've learned from the company side is that great candidates, they are often rejected not because they are weak in any way, but because of like unclarity around the candidate, that we didn't fully understand your competence or like how you would fit into this precise role. And that is why I think that, clarity, a lot of the times, it beats being brilliant. It's more important to be clear. And so when people get rejected, of course, it's easy to think like, I'm not good enough, I failed the interview, or like I'm missing something big. But in reality, it's I mean, rejection, it usually means far less dramatic things than that. So, I mean, when a hiring team are unsure about the candidate, they don't think like, oh, this person is bad in any way, or like this person is unskilled. They think like, I'm not completely sure about this candidate. I'm not sure exactly what the candidate's skills are. I'm not sure about the cultural fit. And like, I'm not sure about their development potential. And that uncertainty, that is always a risk. And when there's uncertainty and risks, companies always choose the safer option. So being very talented but unclear, that's often worse than being like slightly less experienced but very clear on what you want, what you can do, what you have experience from, and what you want to develop. And hiring, it's not about like finding the best developer in the world. It's about finding the best match for this role at this moment with this level of risk. So your task as a candidate is not to be like impressive in every dimension here, but it's to be like easy to understand and to be clear. Finally, one more thing that's important to remember when you get a no, because we all get no's. It's part of the whole job finding process. So don't see it as a failure. I'm really a true believer that everything happens for a reason, and what is meant to be, it will also happen. One thing that we know for a fact, that every no, it is simply one step closer to the right yes, with the right company at the right time for the right role. So be patient. And when a recruiter or hiring manager opens your CV, they don't read line by line, unfortunately. I know CVs is something we work very hard on, but then in reality, you only get a few seconds in the first stage, because recruiters, we scan it. We don't have time to read all CVs carefully. And the first thing I scan is always the candidate's like most previous experience, or of course education if it's a more junior role. And I look for the match with an exact role in mind. So that's why it's so important to make it as easy as possible for recruiters and like really highlight why you are a match with this specific role. So don't let us guess why you're a match. And also don't write too much, so the recruiter have to go through like a lot of text and a lot of pages to see if you're a match or not. Make it easy. Of course, if like you as a candidate, if you get past the first round, then we read the CV more carefully. But often in the beginning, like we can have 20, 50, hundreds or more CVs, and we have a limited time, and we have like a very specific role in mind. So in the very first seconds, all recruiters ask themselves, like, is this candidate relevant for this role? Do I trust this profile? Does this profile signal stability? What impact has this candidate done in the past? So we're not like asking if you're smart, we're asking if you're a fit with this role. And that's why clarity matters more than brilliance in early stages. If we can't like quickly answer those questions, we move on, even if you could be like actually really strong. So that's why your CV needs to show who you truly are in like the easiest way possible. Okay, so how do I make sure that my CV stand out and shows that I'm a match to this role? Well, first of all, your CV is not a biography. It's not your entire life and hobbies and interests and your whole career history. See it as like a communication tool, and think of it as a sales page for one specific role. It can also be more than one page, but there's hardly ever a good idea to keep your CV than more than like maximum 2 pages. And Iraklis will share a lot more about this, and I agree with everything that he will share. I've seen the slides, so I'll just keep it short. A clear headline that anchors who you are. Like short, concrete achievements. What has been the result? What was the impact? Or like, what did you learn from it? Keep it like fewer adjectives and more just facts. And once again, it doesn't have to be everything that you have ever done. once again, clarity here. For example, I mean, don't write experienced developer with passion for technology, but write more concrete, like senior backend engineer within fintech, payments, and AWS, for example. And for example, worked with microservices, it tells me almost nothing. But if you describe more, like designed and maintained microservices, handling 1 to 2 million daily transactions, that tells me something else. It gives me scale, it gives me responsibility, and it shows confidence. So choose what to highlight and what to leave out. So of course, AI is everywhere, and you should, of course, use it. It can be a great tool if you use it correctly. I think it's excellent for like layout and design and structure and removing spelling and grammar issues. But when AI writes the whole content for you, it becomes a big problem. I mean, we recruiters recognize AI-generated CVs very quickly, and it just becomes like very hollow. It sounds so polished, it's too correct, and it gets like strangely empty. So it feels like a robot, and yeah, it is a robot that has written it. So it's much better to like show that you are human, a human who knows how to use AI in the best way. So use AI as an assistant. You bring the substance, and then AI helps you like clean it up, and also make sure that you correct it afterwards, after AI has helped you. Then regarding cover letter, so more forward-leaning companies tend to think that, you know, the cover letter has played out its part. Some companies, they still require them. Of course, then you just need to write them. But once again here, keep it short and sweet, tight. So no like fluffy language. Again, recruiters scan the letter. They are not like reading slowly, absorbing every word. So make it clear and not too long. And I usually think that, you know, 2 sentences in the beginning of your CV, like an intro to your CV, I think it's better than to have like a full letter. Then photos. Well, I mean, there's no universal rule here, of course. The safest is often to go with no photo. For me as a recruiter, I'm trying to reduce bias. So I would say no to photo, because a photo, it adds emotion. It doesn't add competence. And some companies, they even like remove the photos internally before sharing your CVs. So it's not your looks and your face that gets you hired. It's your competence and clarity. But if you do choose to go for a photo, like I would say, make sure it's professional, but that's my bias. Someone else might think differently and, you know, would like a selfie when you're out with your friends, and maybe think that looks like a great match. So again, it's biased and it creates emotions. So LinkedIn, make sure that you keep the same information on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be exactly what you write on the CV, but it needs to be the same story, and make sure that like the dates are correct and everything. Otherwise, recruiters, we wonder what has happened, and we don't want to make recruiters wonder. We want to make them feel safe. Also, a recommendation for me, who contact a lot of candidates over LinkedIn, is that, you know, if a recruiter reaches out to you, reply, even if you're not interested at this specific time. Maybe in a year or two you are interested, and then it's so much easier if you already have built a relationship with some recruiters to companies you could be interested in. I mean, you're not committing to anything, you're just building relationships, and you're networking and you're benchmarking. And your next job, I mean, it could absolutely come from a conversation that you had months or years earlier. Okay, from photo on CVs, let's bridge over to bias and competency-based recruitments. So every person involved in hiring is biased. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, like recruiters, hiring managers, me, we are all biased. So it's a fact about, you know, how the human brain works. Bias is because we are human. It's in our DNA to always try to group people together and see where I belong in which group of people and how do we behave as a group and so on. And this, I mean, it served a purpose for us during the Stone Age and before that, to be together in your tribe and to support each other. But now in recruitments, I mean, we want to get as far away from bias as possible, because I mean, if we, for example, come from the same neighborhood, or if my uncle knows your uncle, it doesn't say anything about how well you will perform in your job, right? And bias is not intentional, and it becomes much stronger when we're stressed, when we're hiring fast, when we have many candidates to compare, and so on. And yeah, that like describes exactly the situation that most hiring teams are in every day. So when the brain is under pressure, the brain looks for shortcuts. It looks for patterns, for familiarity, like any signals that feel safe. And that's where the bias comes in. So what we often call like gut feeling or intuition is usually just bias that we cannot fully explain. It feels intuitive, it feels good, it feels confident, but it's I mean, it's never neutral. And the thing is that it doesn't decide who is the best. It decides who feels safe. And in hiring, safety, it wins over potential. So that's, I mean, it can be a huge problem for companies, because when bias drives decisions, then companies, we risk missing out on like the strong talent, hiring people who feel right instead of people who like perform well. We're building less diverse, which also means less resilient teams. And that's why many serious companies like actively try to reduce bias in recruitments to make better decisions. And bias, it can show up in very, very subtle ways. Like someone feels more confident because they communicate in a familiar way. Someone feels safer because they studied where others in the team studied. Someone feels risky because their background doesn't look like standard. The name can trigger bias, the age can trigger bias, an accent, a photo, of course, immediately creates an emotion. So things like that. But none of these things are, of course, reliable indicators of performance, but like the brain treats them like signals of safety anyway. So that is why we should move towards competency-based recruitment, because it produces better outcomes. And competency-based recruitment is there to, of course, reduce the bias, increase the fairness between candidates, and improve like the quality long time in hiring. So it shifts the decisions from like, yeah, I like this person, it feels good, towards, can this person do the job? Have they shown this capability before? And competency-based recruitment, it means something very concrete. It means that we evaluate candidates based on what they have actually done, how they have handled real situations in the past. So we don't evaluate on like confidence alone or charisma. So in practice, it means that we try to reduce bias through like using clear role definitions, having structured interviews with similar questions to all candidates so that we then can compare them, and evaluating candidates against competences rather than just like impressions of the candidate. And it's also like forcing ourselves to explain why we think that someone is a good fit. And what you as a candidate can do, if you have this in mind, what you can do to make it easier for a recruiter to see and to evaluate your competence. So think about how you describe like what you have done in the past, how you think, what problems you have solved, how you have solved them, and what impact you have had. So the less room there is for bias to take over, the easier it is for a recruiter to like really understand you. Okay, moving on to how interviews are evaluated. So interviews, they are, like I just described with competency-based, it's usually more structured than the candidate realizes. So there are scorecards, of course, notes, summaries, debrief meetings when candidates are compared like side by side. And typical things we want to understand are like potential to develop. Can this person grow with us? We want to know technical depth, communication skills, like will it be easy to work together? We want to know the cultural fit. How would you contribute to our culture? Motivation, we look for what type of seniority, and of course, if you have like the passion for what you do. So my recommendation is to really think about these things before an interview. Like, what are my strengths and how can I describe them also with previous experiences? So that will make you a lot more prepared for an interview. So passion, that is one of the biggest things I look for when hiring. Passion, hunger, like excitement for your expertise and for what you can contribute with. And it's, I don't mean passion is in like being loud or overselling or dramatic. It's more like curiosity and ownership and really taking pride in the quality of your work. And I would say it shows in like how you talk about your work and what excites you and what you want to improve and so on. I would go as far as saying like that skills, that is what gets you to interviews, but then the passion, that is what gets you offers. I think that one of the biggest mistakes from a candidate perspective is to treat interviews like exams. Like you wait for a question, you answer the question, then you wait, then you answer the next question and so on, because it creates a sort of passive dynamic. So if you as a candidate ask like really thoughtful questions, it changes in the meeting. You move from being like evaluated to sort of co-evaluating. You shift the mode in the meeting. It's more like, yeah, I'm interviewing you as a company as well. So, and you come across as a lot more confident when you do that. So I would say like strong candidates, they really turn the interview into conversations. So what should I ask in an interview then? And once again, this is not for like you trying to impress, but you are trying to decide if this is the right place to invest your time and invest your energy. So ask all the questions that you need to understand if this is the place for you, and prepare them in advance as well. But I think it can be like, why was this role opened? What problems are we trying to solve with this hire? What does success look like? What makes people struggle here? And how decisions are made. Also, ask questions about like how the company is organized, ways of working, culture, and so on. And like basically everything that I assume that you are very interested in knowing before joining a company. So, and it signals a lot. It signals that, you think long-term and that you are not desperate for a job and that you are selective. So there are some things that always is a red flag. A red flag, it doesn't, automatically reject you, but they increase the uncertainty. And that can be like an unclear career story, many different moves. Like speaking negatively about previous employers and showing like no curiosity about the company, focusing only on money without the context, like saying, I want this job because I want a higher salary. And also to never like owning any decisions or not seeing your part in, if there was a conflict or, why you weren't thriving, and say like, yeah, they decided, they told me, they didn't give me the right tasks and so on. So, I mean, I would say that if you share about previous workplace that wasn't working for some reason, share instead how you handled that and, what you could have done differently, and take responsibility and own it. Like, what did you learn and so on. That shows maturity and ownership. And I know that some candidates think that gaps are red flags. I don't think it is. It doesn't have to be. But like unexplained gaps, that can be like unclear stories. And unclear stories, it creates doubt. So again, be clear, write what you did and what you learned from it. If it was like traveling or taking care of a family member, having kids, or whatever it was, like fill in the gaps to make the recruiter feel safe. Moving on to how to choose the right company for you. So first of all, when it comes to choosing the right company, I want to come in with a bit of a mind shift here. So start with like choosing the companies you are interested in, apply, and then when you are in the interview, like you interview them. And if you come into the meeting prepared to interview them, you will get a lot more out of the interview. And like we just talked about, it shows your passion and commitment, and most importantly, it makes your decision a lot easier if you know more about the company. And I would ask about the culture, and keep in mind that culture is not what companies say on their website. It's what the culture is when you see it when something breaks, when deadlines are missed, when someone disagrees or someone makes a mistake. Then you really see the culture when it's like put to the test. So like I would ask about how conflict is handled, how decisions are made, how the feedback works, how trust is built. So yeah, so I think that's really important to ask those questions, and a lot of the times it's like more important than any perks from the job. Also good to reflect about is like what company size you would thrive in. And here's, of course, there's no universal best company type or size, but it's different. Like startups, they can give you impact and chaos, not chaos in a bad way. If you think it's fine to come into an environment where nothing is set yet and maybe be the first one in your role, start building from the very scratch. It also gives you a lot of possibilities for impact and like being part of a journey in an early stage. In scale up, it's like much more around forming the structure and learning opportunities, still a lot of impact and growth. And in larger companies, it gives you the structure and more like rigid processes and stability, larger teams, etc. So I think it's really worth giving it some thought around what is best, what is the best thing for you at this time in your life. And none of these are like right or wrong. The key question is like, what do you need right now? What do you need to grow, and what would get you motivated? Also worth thinking about is like, what's in it for you in your job? Of course, the salary, but also think about like the total compensation in terms of insurances, pension, extra vacation, flexibility, the hybrid working model, extra sick days, perks for parents, etc. And also when it comes to your possibility to grow. Working for a well-known company, for example, that can be like a door opener to the next career move, etc. So, I mean, be smart here. Don't look only at the salary. I'm not saying that you should settle for a lower salary, absolutely not, but look at the full perspective of like what kind of possibilities the job can provide also in the long term. For example, like the job that pays slightly less but dramatically grows your skills, it might win in the long run. Also, on this topic, good for you to know if you don't know this yet. So starting from this summer in 2026, there's a new EU legislation coming regarding salary transparency, which means that you can ask exactly what the salary structure looks like for similar positions as the role that you are applying to. And the company must give you this information. So this is trying to make it more fair when it comes to salaries. So lastly, if you only remember one thing from this presentation, remember to like shift your mindset to think of yourself not like a candidate in front of a judge, but think of yourself as a professional choosing a partnership. So thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, you can just go ahead.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. I think we have some time for a few questions.
Hey, Charlotte, thank you for the presentation. One question is age something we should put in the CV? Because it's one of the questions I have over the years.
No,
Yes.
I don't think you should put, once again, that is like a bias figure. So I don't think that you should put age.
Dimitri is asking if someone doesn't have an AI skill related in their CV, is it a bad thing? No. Now,
It's a must-have, you know.
or it's a must-have.
I mean, you don't have to use AI to create your CV, of course, but it's a really good help. And I think that everyone needs to sort of be updated with AI. I mean, I guess I'm not that updated with AI, but to some level that, you know, I use AI, and I think that you will fall behind if you don't start using it to some extent.
You said earlier about the cultural fit, and it's something that you assess the candidates. How can someone assess if a candidate is a good cultural fit in, let's say, a few minutes? If you don't leave him or her under pressure or under deadlines, whatever.
So the cultural fit, it's not something that is done in like 5 minutes in an interview, but it's something that it's done throughout all the like the whole recruitment process. So in every interview, we assess the cultural fit, and that, you know, it's a lot about how we communicate with each other. And also sometimes we do like a personality assessment in the beginning, where we can, you know, it shows, it's not black and white, like this person is like this or that, but it opens up questions so it makes it easier for us to understand the candidate more. So I think it's a really good tool to use, actually.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah, once more.
Thank you.